Today I'm making a bed out of walnut and rocks. This bed is for my new house, and this video is sponsored by Helix. This is a design idea I've been thinking about for a while, and I wanted to execute it with just basic handheld power tools. I've been making projects with rocks for a couple of years, and that led to other rock guys reaching out and wanting to collaborate. My buddy James Lawston has a real good collection of rocks from his property, and he gave me a couple 250 to 300 pound boulders. I believe these are a type of granite, and while I was tempted to go bigger, I try to stick with rocks that I can move by myself. Most of my rock fabrication is done with an angle grinder. This is an inexpensive, pretty basic power tool, and I just use tile cutting blades or these diamond grinding wheels. The first step is to flatten out one side of the stone so that the base of the bed is nice and stable. I don't have to get this perfectly flat because I'm going to use some epoxy later, so I just grind a little bit and then hold a board up to it to see how wobbly it is. I picked two rocks that were about the same height, and now I'm going to make a jig that will inform me how much to cut into them so that I have a level base on both sides of the bed. I used a Sharpie to draw a line at the height of the bottom of the bed frame. Now I can use my tile cutting blade and just cut along that line and then slowly chip out pieces. I make cuts about every 3/4 of an inch, which results in pieces of stone that are easy to chip out with a hammer and chisel. I'm trying to make a flat ledge in each one of the rocks that the bed frame can sit on, and it only took me about an hour to process each rock. None of these attachments for the angle grinder are particularly expensive, and I'll put links to them in the description section below. I carved the bottoms of the rock to be mostly flat, but I found this trick works really well to get them perfectly flat. What I do is I lay out a sheet of silicone, and I try to find the flattest surface possible to do this on. Now I can just spray this anchoring epoxy all over the silicone and then just plop the rock right on top of it. This anchoring epoxy is incredibly strong and bonds really well to stone and concrete, but it doesn't stick to the silicone. And the little imperfections on the underside of the rock that I tried to flatten get filled in by this epoxy, resulting in a nice flat surface that doesn't scratch up my floors. This is also a lot less time consuming than trying to grind a rock perfectly flat. I got a good deal on a bunch of walnut that ranged in thickness from 1 3/4 to 1 inch in thickness. The boards weren't fully kiln dried, and they had a bit of warp to them. I need 2 rails that are 1 3/4 inch thick for the outside frame of the bed. I ripped these with my Ryobi circular saw, and since the wood was trying to close up and squeeze the blade, I just used a putty knife shoved into the cut to keep the pressure off. Now I have the 2 main side rails that will serve as the structure for the bed platform. I made angle cuts at either ends just by drawing a line and then following it with the circular saw. I used a palm router to put a radius on the outside edges just to make sure that the corners and edges aren't too sharp. This is pretty basic woodworking. It doesn't require a lot of skills. I didn't need a full wood shop, just a handful of battery powered tools and a little bit of willingness to tolerate some imperfections here and there. For the deck of the bed, I need boards that are long and have 2 parallel edges. A jointer and a table saw would be the ideal way to achieve this, but you can get pretty close with a circular saw as long as you have a nice long straight edge. For my cross cuts, I just use a speed square and I'm able to get nice 90-degree cuts. This is one of the first pieces I made for my new house in Joshua Tree, and I'm really enjoying having 5 acres, which gives me very scenic places to do a whole lot of sanding. The structural integrity of the bed frame comes by connecting flat pieces, which will make the deck, to these more vertically oriented pieces that range from about 3 to 4 inches in height. I'm connecting them with pocket holes, just using my Kreg jig, so that I have the security of both glue and screws for these connections. Pocket holes are a great low-cost option for connecting pieces of wood, as long as you have a design strategy that will conceal these angled holes. I'll take having a lot of open space over a lot of tools any day when it comes to building stuff. High ceilings, concrete floors, and good light made the fabrication of the pieces quite enjoyable. This piece is going to go at the head of the bed and rest on a steel ledge that will be attached to the wall itself. I used to have a lot of anxiety about assembling wood structures without perfectly straight or flat boards, but here's how I get around it.
Okay, so this end's a little off the ground because our cut isn't perfectly straight. Now I want to attach that board. This board's flat on the ground. This board's a little up in the air just at this end. So I could just fasten this to there, but then I'd have a lot of sanding in between there. So what I'm gonna do is pick this up and put a couple of these, which are just sliding freely in. Let's top, just to bring this board a little closer to the top. I'll do one in there as well. So I think we'll start by driving in the screws on this side.
I don't really care if there's only about 1/8 of an inch of warping to the entire surface of the bed. I just want to get the edges aligned to reduce the amount of sanding that I'm going to have to do later.
So I have a little gap between this board and this board. Now, one, because this board's a little bit warped, but two, because this board wasn't cut perfectly straight. There's probably a little bit of probably a 1/16 of an inch of variation. But because this board can bend, I can pull these two together.
Woodworkers like to say that you can never have too many clamps, but you don't actually need that many if you're using pocket holes in combination with your glue up.
Now with this side, I'm a little bowed in the middle, so I'm actually touching the ground on either side, so it's probably a little less than a 1/16 of an inch right under here in the middle. So it's a different challenge, but I think I'll be okay just placing this one flat. I might put a popsicle stick under there just to bridge that up, but should be fine either way. So this board is bowed a little bit up, so I probably won't put the popsicle stick under there. I'll probably just have to do a little extra sanding in this particular middle zone. And that's not so bad. That's actually fitting pretty straight.
My concrete floors are pretty flat, so I can use my body weight to push the wood down flat to the concrete and get alignment that way.
So these pieces are coming together pretty good. I do need to push down on that. This is a little bowed. So I think what I'll do is first, I'm snugged up against this side, so I can go down here.
Pocket screws are really good at pulling the pieces together to minimize the cracks, but you do have to pay attention to sequence. I make sure that a good fit is possible first, and then I start driving in the screws. Now that the perimeter of the frame is assembled, I can measure the length for these walnut cross supports, cut them, and then screw them in place with a combination of pocket screws and some cabinet screws. Alright, now I can flip the frame over and see how well my edges are aligned and how much sanding I need to do.
And now I'm confronted with my not so perfect cuts. I need to sand these pieces where they meet together, not so that they're all perfectly flat, but just so it's a continuous surface, even if that means it's a little bit curved. All right, so after about 5 to 8 minutes of sanding, I have a surface that's not flat, but that is smooth. Now it's pretty flat between these two pieces. It definitely dips down to this not so straight rail, but all I need is to be able to have my hand go smoothly across. And if I put a marble right here, would it roll? Yeah, but not the end of the world. And to be fair, I think it's one of the little, when you see those little wavy imperfections, kind of proves that it's not veneer.
For the slats themselves, I'm using a combination of 1/2 inch and 3/4 inch plywood. The deck pieces of the bed frame are about 1.25 inches, so this combination will get the slats flush to the walnut. I'm screwing the plywood together just so that these two sets of flats are easy to move and won't slide around too much. I'm going to use a heavy piece of angle steel to connect the bed to the wall. I just pulled a piece out of my scrap pile, cut off some of the weird ends, and then ground away all the rust with my angle grinder. I used a stud finder to locate the studs through the drywall, and then drilled holes through the steel so that I can secure it to the structure of the wall itself. I've been using Ryobi Monocoat quite a bit. It's expensive, but it doesn't require a sprayer or a spray booth. It looks great, easy to apply, and I found the finish to be quite durable. I added in some steel corner brackets and mending plates just to reinforce everything. I have a feeling that this wood's going to move a little bit over time, so I may need to add a few more pieces of steel in the future. This is the first headboard assembly that I made. I later switched it out because I just didn't like the way it looked, but I just used the same combination of tools and it wasn't that hard. I did like the idea, however, of having a little bit of storage at the head of the bed. Alright, it's finally time to haul the rocks into place and start assembling the entire bed. But first, let's hear a word from the sponsor of this video, Helix. They made the mattress that I'm going to sleep on. Sleep is really important, but when it comes to picking a mattress, it's hard to know what features and specifications are going to work well for your specific sleep preferences. And this conundrum is why I chose Helix. It starts with a sleep quiz that helps you pick your mattress. You start with the basics like age, height, and weight, and then you start selecting different sleep preferences. I selected a queen-size mattress. For a stomach sleeper, picked a medium feel in terms of firmness, and indicated that I rarely have back pain or snore. I was recommended the Helix Dusk, and I've been sleeping on it for almost 2 months now, and it's great. My Helix mattress arrived promptly, and unboxing, unrolling, and removing the protective plastic was a dream. I saved the plastic to use as a drop cloth in a future painting project, and it was really cool to see the mattress expand once I cut the airtight packaging. I've built a lot of beds, and I've tried a lot of mattresses, both for my houses and for the hotel, but this was the first one that felt like it was designed for me. Comfort means different things to different people, so it's nice to have a bunch of prompts that guide you in the right direction. Descriptions like firm or soft are pretty vague. So now that I've slept on this and know what I like, I was curious to see what comfort means to me. Like, how much does a mattress compress when I drop a 40-pound weight on it? I recommend taking the Helix Sleep Quiz so that you can see what comfort looks like for you. In addition to the mattress, I also got a couple of pillows from Helix because it's nice to start with fresh pillows if you're getting a new mattress. So here's to fresh starts and good sleep. Now, you might be wondering, how do I get one of these Helixes? Well, it's pretty easy. Just go to helixsleep.com/homemademodern to get 25% off site-wide, or you can just scan the QR code here on screen. That's helixsleep.com/homemademodern. Thank you, Helix Sleep, for sponsoring this video, and let's get back to the project. I wanted to create a buffer between the hard surfaces like stone and steel and the walnut. So I just used some steel and stick cork to create a firm but not so scratchy lining. I like cork for applications like this because it's natural and it doesn't trap moisture. I used scrap 2x4s to make a block that would hold the bed frame up at the right height so I could kind of slide the rocks around and figure out where exactly I wanted them to go. I slid the rocks in place, added in the headboard assembly, checked to make sure that that little storage compartment, that the hinges on it would still open and close so I couldn't get it all the way up to the wall. One of the things I'm doing with projects for my new house is pushing really fast to get them mostly complete. This way I can live with them for a while, test everything out, and then see what adjustments need to be made. There's always problems or challenges that I didn't anticipate, and some of the ones that I did anticipate turned out not to be a big deal. I've been sleeping on the bed for a few weeks. I really like it. Everything's super stable, rock solid if you may say so. But I think the headboard is a little too high aesthetically. It just feels a little too much like it's looking like a sled. So we're going to switch this out, and there's a couple other things I want to adjust. I anticipated the wood sliding on the rock a little bit more, which is why I put in this cork buffer to kind of create some cushion. But the bed really doesn't move at all when it's anchored to that steel ledge. So I'm going to remove this just because you can see that edge, and I want it to just look a little cleaner. I'm also going to slide the rock back just a bit. I made sure not to glue the headboard to the bed platform because I wasn't entirely sure about it. That made it quite easy to switch it out with a smaller and simpler version. I only removed the cork on the side wall of the rocks. I kept the cork underneath the wood where gravity is bringing the walnut right to the stone. As a design, this piece definitely stands out and makes a statement for the room. So let's talk a little bit about some of the design choices. The thing I'm second guessing the most is those tapered ends. Here's what it looks like with just a straight end, and I think this is an improvement. If I wanted the mattress to be less visually dominant, I could have gone thicker in the wood with the mattress recessed below the surface of the deck. I like the proportions of this, but I don't like the idea of what it would mean for tucking in the blankets and sheets. Now, I don't hate the taper, it's fine. Just think the straight edge probably would have been the better choice, and I think I even could have gone longer with the wood platform itself. There's something really peaceful and solid about combining wood with stone. I know a lot of people are going to have opinions about bumping shins and stubbing toes, but honestly, this is not an issue for me. What I'm most proud about is how few tools were needed to build this. What I find interesting about this project is how unique and substantial it looks relative to the few amount of tools that are needed to build it. All the stone fabrication is done with an angle grinder. This is the grinding wheels that I get off of Amazon. They're really good for just removing material. They got a little curve to it, but you can still get a relatively flat surface if you're careful. For cutting and chipping out the pieces, I just go to Home Depot and get these segmented tile cutting blades. If they can cut porcelain tile, they can cut stone. They're about 20 bucks and you can get a lot of use out of one of them. When you're going with a battery-powered angle grinder, batteries become the key component because these use a lot of powers. Really happy with the upgraded edge batteries, and that really gives you a lot more use out of that. When it comes to connecting the wood, I'm just using drill and driver powered by this pocket hole Kreg jig. This is the most minimal one, really inexpensive. You can get the whole little package for 20 something bucks. And when it comes to cutting the wood, I'm doing all the cuts with the circular saw. I recommend at least a 7 1/4 inch blade because some of this walnut was pretty thick. For straight cuts, I use my squeezy clamps. These are 99 cents each, and I just got a piece of MDF trim to guide that along. And I go through one of those trim boards every 6 months or so, but again, you can just pick one up from Home Depot. A little longer than 8 feet is perfect for ripping down the plywood. Finishing the wood components, this is basically all I'm using. An Orbital sander and a little battery-powered router. These aren't exactly fine woodworking tools, but also, well, the amount of sanding I do would probably defeat that classification in the first place. So this collection of tools I think is great if you're an intermediary DIYer that's looking to get into the beginnings of substantial woodworking projects. When it comes to glue-ups and clamps, I really like these Kreg clamps. I have, I think, like 5 of them in total. They're different lengths, they're quite strong. I use them for gripping things like the headboard and just holding that quickly in place to clamping up the glue-ups themselves. I also like that these are reversible, so you can even use them as a spreader, or in some cases even for lifting things if they're not too heavy. This is a good example of how I'm building out the furniture and millwork pieces for my new house. I know I haven't been that active on this channel. I've been so busy building the house and then building the hotel that YouTube has been it's been getting neglected. My plan is to keep showcasing these major build projects for the interior of the house, and once everything is furnished, then I'll edit together the entire construction sequence with tours so you can kind of see how the idea evolves and gets completed. As for the hotel itself, well, it's getting close to completion, and if you check out on Instagram, Hotel Reset, you'll see the progress. Honestly, it's been a total grind and I'm feeling a little exhausted, but I'm looking forward to opening it up in May and then getting back to building stuff with my own 2 hands. So what I'm trying to say is, thank you for sticking with this channel. I know there hasn't been a lot of content, but more is coming soon, and I appreciate this long-term relationship that we find ourselves in. Oh, and if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks. Bye.